What's the difference between emergency management plan development and writing the plan? Because there is a big difference. And if you've joined us in previous videos, we're at the point now where we're ready to sketch out the plan. And we're not ready to write it, but we're ready to sketch it out. So let me show you. So I like to call the creative side of the planning piece, because this is where you get to actually take some very creative steps. So starting off by brainstorming. Now that you've got a good understanding of the hazards and the risk in your community and the type of hazards, you really want to start to imagine what those might look like, because you've got to have multiple courses of action for one scenario, because there's so many variables. So having a plan A and a plan B is much better than just having a plan A. And you want to take the time to kind of think of the unthinkable. You want to take the time that it requires to account for as much as possible and get as many people involved in the review of how you think an incident might play out in your community or organization. So like an artist might start off a painting by taking a pencil and just sketching out on paper what their vision is. This is where you're going to take the time to literally sketch out and imagine how a wildfire or a flood or a cyber attack might play out in your organization or community, and start to think through all of the things that are going to be going on and all of the actors and players that are going to need to be available. So you literally want to sketch this out on a whiteboard for each hazard or event type or incident. Use sticky notes, get creative. Have recorded discussions with people and just ask them, if a wildfire moved in from the north through this area with high gusts of winds with, a low humidity, what would that look like? And what do you think? Where do you think the smoke would go? And who would be most affected? Have those imaginary what if conversations with people so you can kind of collect their thoughts, their perceptions, and their concerns, so you can make better decisions and have better information and questions to ask when you get to that step. So for all the scenarios that you've got to start to develop courses of action. And I would recommend that, when you're whiteboarding all of this, you do use literally these 5 W's and the how, because when you can think about a flood or a cyber attack and you can answer who does what is going on, when will they do it, why do they do it, and how will they do it, you're going to answer a lot of the big questions that are going to lead to developing timelines and decision points. So you want to also check out on the feasibility of who can do what and when and how. We'll get into that a little bit later in this section, but you want to make sure that, these courses of actions and how you're going to manage them sort of align with the vision of chief and council and other leaders and other managers in the community, even members, because everyone kind of assumes that you're planning and we're prepared. And it's always funny to not funny, but interesting to hear how people say, well, why aren't they doing that anyway? Or why didn't they think about that? This is your opportunity to think about it now so you can be better prepared. Add timelines and decision points. So let's go with the scenario of a cyber attack. Let's say IT gets notification from a hacker that they've now downloaded, your organization's entire database, and they're going to hold it ransom for $1 million. What's your response? What do you do? What do you do within your internal IT system? Who's going to call insurance to start the claim? Who's going to notify the people whose information was taken? The staff? Do staff get to go home because you've got to shut down your IT system? So you're literally who, what, why, where, when, and how, putting estimated times. We're going to get the notification. It's going to take me 3 minutes to call the insurance company and file the claim. It's going to take me a minute to notify the emergency management coordinator. It's going to take them 5 minutes to talk to communications to start working on a staff announcement. You can map out a lot of these big steps and the time it's going to take to identify, where you've got to make decisions and how long it's going to take to make those decisions. And as I explain next here in detailing every little bit, this is the opportunity to get down to like the nitty gritty. What is the actual description of the actions each individual is going to take? When they have to call insurance, what is the phone number? Who do they contact if it's after hours? Who's responsible for making that call? There's so many little details that need to be accounted for. You again want to take that time to like think it through with everybody and have them go through their list and have them even, spew out all of their knowledge, especially if you've got people in your community or organization that have been through this before. It's a great time to pick their brain and say, okay, what did you do? What worked? How would you do it differently next time? And detail all those little tasks. Tactical pauses. I love a good tactical pause. And it's called a tactical pause because it could come across as people thinking you're not working or not moving forward. But really, we have to take the time to, sort of retreat and assess and evaluate what we're doing so we can ensure that what we're doing works with other departments, works with other jurisdictions, works with Parks Canada or the province or the feds, whoever it is. Because you don't want to get so far ahead in your plan and developing courses of actions without those around you. And taking the time for tactical pause is really important. It also kind of de-stresses the workflow because it gives you time to like sit back, maybe take your mind off things a little bit, let your subconscious process everything that's been going on for the last few months through this process. And it allows and gives you permission to kind of take a rest and let things synthesize so you can get even more feedback. Select the courses of action. So now you've gone through, imagining all these events, coming up with possible courses of action, figuring out the timelines and all the details. Now you want to really take a look at and compare cost, benefit, and risk to each of them. Because, one example could be wildfire. Is it better to procure and purchase and have on hand your own, rapid setup sprinkler system for a community? Or does it make more sense to contract and create a memorandum of understanding with a contractor for that equipment, right? It may not be cost effective for a community or a nation to purchase millions of dollars worth of pumps and large sprinkler systems and hoses and the trucks to carry them. It might be more cost effective to create an agreement and have someone bring that to you. But having them in community can mean a faster response time. So you've got to take a look at, the cost benefit piece, because here, this is where, chief and council, senior elected officials are going to start asking questions about budget, costs, what's it going to take to maintain new things that you purchase or things that you set up, right? You always want to make sure that you've got that after purchase support and maintenance figured out before you make any large purchases. Lastly, once you've kind of figured out on the best course of action, now you go into making your contacts, starting to have conversations with other organizations, figuring out where there might be shortfalls so you can draft those mutual aid agreements, start shortlisting vendors. So if you have to call them, you've got your quotes and your costs and your prices all set before the response. So you're not having to negotiate, be in a situation where you have to negotiate when they know you need them most, where you're not going to have as much flexibility. You also want to start to look at producing estimates for each functional area. So this is like asking finance what they need, communications, what do they need, what do they have to have in place, right? And that's going to make sure that when the time comes, they have all the tools and resources that they need to do to fulfill their job. So for example, communications. Maybe they need some crisis communications training. What does finance need in terms of being able to process millions of dollars of receipts when they're, only used to doing maybe $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 a year? What extra equipment are they going to need? That all comes into identifying the resources and capability that they will need under your various scenarios. And then lastly, around intelligence. You want to have a system set up where you can get the intelligence you need quickly. And what that means is, for example, if you're facing a flood, contact an engineering or a hydrology firm now and create that relationship with them. So if it's forecasted that there's going to be, 80 to 100 millimeters of rain for the next week, you can talk to them now about what's that going to look like given the current conditions upstream and downstream, given the time of year. Where does the province or territory have, river gauges in place? And, how can you gather that information so you can get real-time data on how the water is creeping up? Don't rely and think that the province and territories are doing that for you and are going to give you that information in a timely way, because they may not have experience with a certain type of event. So you want to go out and gather as much intelligence now as you can and have those systems set up, because that's going to help your situational awareness, not only during preparedness and mitigation, but during response and recovery. So that's plan development. In the next video, we're going to get into step 5 and actually start writing and drafting a plan that you can take for approval to your leadership. See you there. Thanks for joining us at HazardScape. You can subscribe to our YouTube and find our ad-free training videos by becoming a supporter on Patreon with a network of other Indigenous peoples looking to make their communities safer. And remember, know your HazardScape and be prepared.